Hello and welcome to my channel, and I am back with another story time for you guys. This story takes place when I was 17 and I was a teen mom. I had just had a baby 2 weeks before I turned 17. So if you guys have not watched my video 16 and Pregnant, please be so kind to go watch the video. That way you can definitely be on the same timeline as this video. Now for my subscribers, you see I have a different scenery today. This story is one of my, but today I am going to tell part of me and my mother's story, but this is my side of things. And remember, there's always your side, their side, and the truth. So I'm going to try to tell the story from the best that I can tell it from what I mean. Some of the things that I'm going to say in this story is embarrassing because it's about me, but I don't want to have to make up names or to come up with a thing, you know, so that I won't be embarrassed. So I'm just going to tell it as real as I can. Okay. This story takes place in Newark, New Jersey, where I am originally from. I had my daughter and I lived on my own. Now, from the first story, you know that I was emancipated at 14. So I was considered an adult. The only people that was at the hospital when I had my daughter was my best friend, Juanita. No family members, nobody else. It was just my best friend. And I wasn't surprised because I lived on my own, and I lost a large group of my friends, including my best friend, Jill. Now, this is so hard. Let me see. Oh my God. Now, let me give you guys a quick rundown. When I found out I was pregnant, I lost my first best friend, which was Jill, and she was not there for me during my pregnancy. Well, she had a sister. She had an older sister. I don't remember her older sister's name, but her older sister came to my aunt's house requesting to see me. And I still don't know why till this day. I don't even know how she found my aunt. But my aunt had told me that Jill's sister was looking for me. And I left a message with my aunt that if she came back to let her know where I stay. Well, during this time she came to see me, I was like 8 months pregnant. So her sister never came back. So I decided that after I had my daughter, I would go see what's going on with Jill while her sister comes see me. Well, I did go to her house, and I found out that Jill had moved out. She had met a man. He was an older man, and she started to pursue her modeling career. Now, going way up in the future, I found out that unfortunately Jill had turned to drugs. Things did not work out really well for her, and she didn't end up on the career path that she wanted to end up on because of drugs. She was just on drugs really, really bad. And that's all I read. That's all I have on Jill. I don't know anything else about Jill. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because one of my spirits of lights had left me a comment and wanted to know what happened to Jill. Well, there you go. That's all I know. Now, getting back, speaking of Jill, I was hoping that she would end up at the hospital, or I would be in touch with her so she could be there for me when my baby came. But she wasn't. It was just Juanita, and Juanita was there for me 100%. I had a very, very smooth pregnancy. I was just so surprised. Like, I was scared to death when I went into labor with my daughter. I was actually at Juanita's mom's house when I went into labor. Her mom had fried some fish, had made some corn and tomatoes with a lot of black pepper, and after I ate, I was so full and stuffed. Juanita's mom was asking me what was I going to do once I had the baby, because she knew that I was considered a legal adult, but I also lived in basically a rooming house. To me, it was like an apartment because I had, you know, a small kitchenette. I only had to share like the bathroom and maybe like the TV area and things of that nature. But I worked, and at the time, I didn't really care too much about TV back then. I had a really busy type life, even with being pregnant and trying to adapt to the alternative school, trying to work, trying to keep up with my grades. So I didn't really care about not having too much in my room. But as I lived there, I did get bigger, and the owner told me, okay, there's no room here for children. So I was saying to the owner, but I've been here, you know, for a while, and I love it here. Now, remember, when I first lived there, I was only 14 years old. Now I am going on 17. And they was telling me that I would no longer be able to live there because now I was having a child. I felt immediately fear, and my comfort was being taken away from me again, you know. So I was scared, and I knew that I would have to find somewhere to go. So when Juanita's mom brought it up, she said, you know, you can live here with us. I was thinking about Juanita's crazy brother, how he done jumped me, him and his girlfriends. That's why you need to watch the first 16 and Pregnant series to be on this timeline. And so knowing that he was abusive and dangerous, I was not trying to live with that woman. So what happened was, all of a sudden, the stress of not knowing where I was going to go once I had my daughter was too much for me. So all of a sudden, whoosh, I looked down and my water broke. And I was like, oh my God. Now this is my first pregnancy, so I immediately said, oh my God, I just peed on myself. And Juanita's mom jumped up and she was like, no girl, you in labor, come on, we got to get you to the hospital. So they called the ambulance, and me and Juanita went to the hospital together to have my daughter. I was so freaking scared. Juanita was so excited. I was saying, oh my God, how am I going to do this? All I could think about was a baby coming out of me. I was just freaking out. And as the doctors put me on the bed and they was getting everything ready, they was scaring me even more. I saw like tools, and they was opening up my legs real wide and putting some type of pan near me. And the pan was just to release everything in you, I guess, because you was getting ready to have the child. So they was giving me like an enema and all kind of stuff so that I can just, you know, be, I don't know, get ready. It's preparing you for having a child. All I could think about was, regardless of what I've been through with my mom, that's the only person that I really wanted by my side at that very moment. I was scared. So they said count to 3. So on 3, I went to go push, and I thought I was going to be like pushing forever. I felt this really sharp pain, and just like that, on the first push, my daughter was out. She wore about 5 pounds and some ounces, but she was out. And I was so relieved. But you know, I think having my daughter was easy. It was getting the placenta out that was hard. That was terrible. Now, after I had my daughter, I did get to go back home to my apartment, and I talked to the owner, and she told me that she would give me about 3 months to find somewhere to go. Now, I had my daughter in July, so it was about October where I had to find somewhere to go, and it was getting cold fast. So I was out looking as much as I could, but every place I found seemed to be really, really expensive. I couldn't afford it. And the other problem that I had, no one wanted to rent to me because I was so young. It was just really, really hard to find somewhere to go. So although I didn't want to, I started thinking about maybe I can just go back home and maybe I can talk to my mom, and maybe somehow or another she can help me with my daughter. I was even thinking she would probably be even happy to even see my daughter, because she didn't even know that I had a child or know that I was pregnant. My mother too much wasn't in my life once I became emancipated. Well, one particular day I went looking for her and I found out that she had moved. And I went to another family member's house and they said, you know, she's mad with me, so she didn't even tell me where she moved at, you know. And I was telling them my situation and they were saying, oh, I wish I could help you, but you know, I got my own kids, I got my own problems, I really can't take you in, then you got a baby. So you know, I very much understood that. They said you definitely need to find your mom. So I went to different locations looking for her from when people remember where she lived at. Now, by the time I found her, from the time I knew where she lived at, she done moved like 3 times. Location, I found out where she lived at, but I had to go wait to see her on my next day off from work. I definitely couldn't take too much time off of work. I wasn't already making enough money, not a lot of money, plus I just had a new baby, and also I couldn't mess up in school if I wanted to graduate. So I waited until my next day off. Now when I got home and I was basically that morning getting ready for school and getting my baby ready for daycare, the owner told me, okay, that's it, you can't stay here anymore. So I explained to the owner that I have been looking for my mom and I have been looking for a place to go, but it hasn't been easy. He says, well, you know, I have to do this because other people gonna think that they're gonna bring their children, and children are not allowed in here. We make special rules for you because you're considered an adult, and I wanted to look out for you. But now that you don't have a baby, I had until the next day to move my things. The door would be locked and my things would be outside. What? I was thinking to myself like, oh my God, like, are you serious? So at that moment I was thinking, okay, the only choice I got is to go live with Juanita and her mom and deal with her brother. That was a really, really frightening thought. So I was like, you know what, before I do something like that, I'd rather just go find my mom and just deal with the consequences of her being mad with me. Because when I was emancipated, we didn't leave on good terms. Our relationship, for me, I always seemed to love her unconditionally, and for her, I was basically her spitfire. I got on her nerve, I drove her crazy, and not just drove her crazy, she you know, when it came to me, she just could not control herself. And I'm not going to get into details about every little thing about me and my mom's relationship. I'm going to save some of them details for another story time when I'm ready and can handle going back and talking about it. I knew I had nowhere to go, so I did pack up my things and everything, and I said, well, if push come to shove, I'll just definitely go stay with Juanita. I didn't call her and tell her that the landlord was basically kicking me out. I didn't want her to know yet, because then it wouldn't have been no discussion. I would have been at her house. So that morning I did leave the house and I packed my things, and I talked to the owner and I asked them, I put my things outside, that I was definitely coming back for them. And I set out my mind that I was definitely going to find my mother that morning and everything would be okay. Well, yep, I found her. I walked, let me tell you, I started out, literally I had no money. Yeah, so literally I had no money, no funds, nothing. Literally had no money, because during the times that I had been pregnant, I wasn't able to work as many hours as I could have been, and I basically went completely just enough amount of time to be able to just pay for where I stayed at and to buy food that I can cook. So it was just money was very little for me. So that particular day, I had no bus fare. I had no money for a bus card. I was basically no money for a cab. I was out back. So I put on about 3 layers of socks because it was snowing and it was cold. It was the type of snow that was kind of slushy and wet when you walk outside. So I knew that my feet probably was going to become numb, not knowing, exactly once I got there if my mother was going to be really at this location that I was told where she moved to. So I was really taking a big chance going that far. Now, I put on layers of clothes on my daughter, and I put a snow suit on her. And that morning, I did not go to school, and I did not go to work because I knew that night I had nowhere to live. I started walking. Man, I felt like I had been walking forever. When I finally found my mother's location, she lived somewhere near. She lived on 17th Ave and Newark. And let me tell you guys, anybody from Newark, New Jersey know that 17th Ave is like there's a hill, like a slope going, like a hill going all the way up and a slope coming down. So I began making my way up this hill, and it took me forever to get up there. I was exhausted. Now, I had not only did I not have money, but I also didn't have no money for food. So I was hungry. The only thing I had was my daughter's milk and her baby food. But as far as myself, I had nothing to eat that day, that morning at all. I was thirsty and I was tired. When I finally got to the house, I was just surprised that my mother lived in a house like that, because from growing up with my mom, I came from the projects, and she moved from the projects to apartment buildings. She never lived in a house, so I was just really surprised that it was a house. And as I started to make my way up the stairs, I realized that this house had layers, like it was like a first floor, second floor, third floor type house. And when I knocked on the first floor, the people told me, Vid, she lives upstairs. No, so I began to walking up the stairs. That was the longest walk of my life. I took my time getting up those stairs. When I got to the door, I think I had been standing at the door maybe 30 minutes. I couldn't bring myself to knock on the door. I was scared to death. And my daughter started getting antsy, started making noise and everything. And I realized that maybe she was cold, because I barely can feel my hands and feel my toes. So maybe I need to just go ahead and knock on this door. I can hear my brother, my sisters running around playing. And so I went ahead and knocked on the door. It was just like a that. No, all of a sudden everything got quiet. So I did it again. I was like, that. So I heard someone come to the door, but they didn't say anything. And I heard one of my little sisters say, "Mom, it's Boo Boo." And my mother said, "What? It's Boo Boo? Well, what Boo Boo doing here? How'd she find out where I live?" When I heard my mom's voice, my heart began to like pump real fast. I was just literally frightened. And it got really quiet. So I said, I'm not going to knock again, because I know that I heard my mother's voice. I heard her say, "What's Boo Boo doing here?" She didn't open the door. So I sat down on the top of the stairs. It's like a steep stairway. It was really steep. Like if you didn't watch your second step, you probably would tumble down the stairs. It was very far down and very steep. So I just sat on the very top step, and I just hold my daughter in my hand. I said, well, I'm just going to sit here until she opens.